This is the Fertility Friday podcast, episode number 43. Welcome to the 43rd episode of the Fertility Friday podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Lisa from FertilityFriday.com, and this is your source for information about the fertility awareness method and all things fertility. And if you've been enjoying the show, I would love it if you would take a moment and leave a review and a rating on iTunes. It helps the show to move up in rankings, and it also helps more people to find it. And of course, I'd like to say a special thank you to all of the listeners who have left reviews already. I do read all of the reviews, and I really appreciate you taking the time to let me know how I'm doing. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please stop by the show notes page and leave a comment. So you'll find all the episodes at fertilityfriday.com/podcast. And you can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/fertilityfridays with an S, and on Twitter at Fertile Friday. And as many of you know, I recently created a Fertility Friday Facebook group. So if you go to fertilityfriday.com/community, you'll actually be redirected to the Facebook group. And my plan with the group is to create a safe space for women who are wanting to learn the fertility awareness method, to share ideas and to support each other. And I'm really excited to welcome today's guest, Sarah Moloney, to the show. Sarah is a Justice Holistic Reproductive Health practitioner who has just recently graduated from the program, so congratulations, Sarah. She's also a birth doula and a birth doula instructor. But Sarah wasn't always working in the holistic health field, and actually she spent 11 years working for the Canadian military as a medic before she changed her career path. So I'm excited to dig into her story a little bit and find out how she ended up as a HRHP. And in today's show, we'll be talking about Sarah's work as a birth doula and exactly what a doula does to help women during pregnancy, labor, and postpartum. We'll also be talking about Sarah's experience as a fertility awareness educator, what the training process was like for her, and how these two specializations have allowed her to serve women in her practice. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa.
Oh, I'm super excited to have you today. Thanks for coming on. So as I mentioned, you have a really interesting story of how you found this work. So I'd love to hear more about it. So maybe you could tell the listeners a little bit about your transition from working in the military to this holistic field that you're now in.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild one. And, I can say I've been on lots of blog talks, and I've been on other kind of radio stations and different fields. And it's, for some reason, it's actually the first thing everybody wants to know. How does someone go from the military to where I am now? So from teaching, soldiers and carrying a sidearm and a med bag to now, teaching women and their partners to carrying around, a birthing ball and a very holistic approach on life. So I do get asked a lot, and I would love to share as well. So how did I do it? I was retiring. I was taking an early retirement, and I was actually in my third trimester of my third birth. So I have 4 children at home. So it was my third birth, and the other 2 births were the same. You know what I mean? They were what the doctor told me, and they were in the hospital, and they had every medical intervention you could think of, and something was different. Something was very different about this birth itself. So anyway, I was retiring from the military, as I said, and I was looking for the next big thing. Who and what was I going to do next? Which was really important because I had been something and someone so strong before, and how could I have taken my medical knowledge? 11 years is a lot to just dump. I knew I was a healer. I knew I loved healing more than I loved the aspect of medical Western practice. But I had a bit of a love-hate relationship with that field. So I just kind of switched gears a little. And like I said, I was in my third trimester. And I actually Googled, I Googled holistic reproduction. I'm pretty sure those are the words. And I think the Justice website came up right away, like instantly. And I was like, oh. And I looked through it a couple times, and I was really intrigued. I knew nothing about it, nothing. If I can say one thing, I wish I had only discovered FAM, so Fertility Awareness Method. I wish I had only discovered it sooner. but such is life. And now I will move forward and just, educate the masses as much as I can, probably to make up for my youth and not knowing about it. But so I Googled it, and I came about this, and I was really excited about it. And everyone knows, and my husband can attest, when you create a spark inside of me, that doesn't go away ever. So when I get excited about something, I generally leap at it wholeheartedly as well, actually. So I really said that. Like, I didn't even know about it, and I said that. I need to teach that because I believed in it. I didn't even fully understand the method, but I knew it was something I needed in my life. I knew it was something that women needed in their life. And, whether it was the hormones of the pregnancy talking, but I was just like, I'm going to educate women. I've been educating, men and women, mainly men, for a long time. And I was missing the femininity. I was missing the beauty in life. I was just missing lots of the things that this realm could bring me. So I actually looked into that and just went forward with it. But just prior to that, like I said, in my third trimester, I looked into doula work. And, I wanted for myself to have a better birth. And what way to have a better birth than to be fully knowledgeable about birth and how to cope with birth and how to understand and what to do when and how to progress better and just to have an all-around better birth. So in my third trimester, I was about 33 weeks, and I connected with the Healing Arts Learning Organization, and they're based out of Cambridge, Ontario, better known as HALO. I connected with them, and again, got a little spark, jumped on board. Didn't even know what a doula was. I had 2 births prior, had never heard of a doula. Do you see the trend I'm getting at here? I don't even know about things, and I'm just like, whatever that is, I need to teach it. I need to be really great at that. So I took it, and I took the training, and my good friend and the founder, Tanya, she can attest that my mouth hit the floor. My mouth hit the floor with the understanding of how birth could be and how birth should be and can be in so many situations and circumstances, and I was blown away. So here I am. I'm just newly retiring. I was gearing up for my third birth in February, and I just started with all of this great knowledge, this healthy, reproductive, holistic knowledge about birth and women and babies and breasts and vulvas, just all of it, just lots and lots of female goodness. And so I remember my daughter was always coming to the appointments and the ultrasounds, and we used to watch the baby shows together. She was 5 at the time and probably one of the most educated Western children, and she was so knowledgeable. And I took the doula training, and I came home, and I was really excited. And instantly I came home, and I more or less fired my OBs and hired midwives. It's my first time ever under midwifery care. And I hired some midwives, and luckily at the time, they had a spot, and I was able to get picked up by midwives. And I said, that's it, I'm going to have a home birth. And then I went one step above, and my daughter said, Mommy, why don't you have birth in the water? And I was like, why don't I? So everything just changed. And I can't thank Halo enough for teaching me. I can't thank my mentor, Tanya, for inspiring me enough. And I can't thank, my family for supporting me enough that at first I thought my husband thought I was going off my rocker. And I just came home and I just went like 180. And I was just like, we're doing this. And I did. I was blessed to have a home water birth, a beautiful, short, amazing home water birth. Actually the day after my birthday. So I had glorious birth, and I can't speak volumes about it enough. But so literally that's kind of where it's tipping into. I was retiring, and I again might have been overly hormonal in my pregnancy stage, and just I wanted to attach myself to more of what I was feeling at the time, and I'm so blessed to have just gone with my gut and gone with what my heartstrings were pulling at, which was to be surrounded by women, teaching women about womanly things. Like, and we're missing that. The pendulum has swung so far, and I've made it I've made it my muse to really to do that again, to bring that back to women of all walks of life, really.
Mm-hmm. What an inspiring story. And I love how you really followed your heart. It was kind of like you didn't question yourself. You just followed exactly what felt right. And I think it's interesting what you said, because I have a son, so I have been pregnant, and I'm pregnant now. By the time you listen to this podcast, I may not be pregnant. I may have had the baby already, but at the time of recording, I'm still pregnant. And I've often wondered as well, is the passion or the drive that I feel for whatever I'm feeling in the moment related to the pregnancy hormones, or is it still a valid drive and just maybe heightened by the hormones? Like, you're in the right direction, but the hormones like really push you where you need to go. I've always wondered what it is. but no, that's your story's so inspiring. And I guess where I wanted to go with that, because you had mentioned that you had never heard of a doula. And
No.
It's safe to say that some of the listeners might have heard the word, but maybe aren't familiar with it. So whenever you're in a situation where, you're chatting with friends or something, or you're out and someone asks you what you do and you say you're a birth doula and an instructor, and then they look at you like you've just told them you live in outer space, how do you describe it to somebody who doesn't really know what it is?
That's a great question. And you know what? I get a lot of my students, and I put them on the spot right away, because we want to instill a lot of confidence and let it just flow. We want birth work and birth knowledge and information to just flow. So I'll put them on the spot, and I'll pretend we're in an elevator, and I'll be a pregnant woman, and I want to hear their 2-minute pitch, because it does happen all the time. And right away, you'll say birth doula, and somebody goes, "Oh, a midwife. I know what that is." That's always the first response. And then we have to reel them back in and say, no, or it's not a doula, or it's not a midwife, it's a doula, actually. And what I say to people is, a doula is a person who shares the passion about birth so wholeheartedly that they actually make it a profession. We offer them mental and physical and emotional support to laboring women and their partners during the prenatal days, through the birth, and into the immediate postpartum. And then, sometimes you can get from there, and you can say, from then on, a postpartum doula would likely take over and be of great assistance to new mothers, because there is a difference between a birth doula and a postpartum doula. And a lot of people aren't aware of that as well. But we do have very different roles, and we're both very unique and very invaluable to the birth process as a whole.
Okay, maybe you could talk a little bit about the difference between a birth doula and a postpartum doula, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So basically, a birth doula, like I said, so mental, physical, emotional support. So that's everything from knowledge-based information. So, you're really reaching out to your clients and having them reach back to you. And when they have questions and comments and they're concerned about things, it's you that they're contacting. And, they can have a great rapport with their healthcare provider, be it OB or general practitioner or midwife itself. But you tend to be there on a much different role, because you're there as pretty much 90% information-based, other than the birth itself. Your space is very intimate. So when healthcare providers have lots of clients and lots of patients and things like that, there isn't a rapport. And lots of women can attest to they're waiting for an hour for the OB, and they get their 3 minutes of fame when they're in the office, and then they're kicked out because somebody else needs to come in. And really, how are you getting down to the nitty-gritty of getting down to people's fears and getting down to people's thoughts and emotions about the birth and things like that, right? And you can read lots in a book or in a pamphlet or in a class for sure, but when you know that you have the continuity of care of a birth doula, meaning that, I've been hired very early. I've had clients, seriously, no word of a lie, I've had clients pee on a stick and then call me. And call me before the partners knew. Obviously, we can't name drop here because that would be huge, but that has happened, and it lights my heart up. And then I say, okay, now go tell your husband. And it's really important, but they get so excited, and that's, repeat clients, or just clients that get so excited to be like, I hear volumes about a doula. I know I want a doula, and that makes me really excited that the more people are knowing. So, like I said, a birth doula, we offer everything. So we offer all of the aid, so up to their prenatal. So it's information, and, we exchange lots of emails and conversations and, phone calls or text messages, however that looks and however that is to the client. We offer prenatal appointments, so however your packages look and how you've, sold your services, that's really important too. So, you offer 1, 2, 3 or more prenatal appointments wherein you can go over lots of really great things like creating birth wishes, going over fears, learning, comfort measures. That's a really big one where we get to go over how we're going to cope and what the birth process looks like and what is really important to do at each stage of labor, which is going to help progress, right? We want them to progress. We want them to progress with as much comfort by using as much comfort measures and expressing as least amount of pain as possible, especially if they choose to go all natural as well, right? So we really want to hone in, and we want to create that team atmosphere. We want to bind the team together, making sure that no one feels out of place and that everybody's comfortable and confident, and everybody has a role, and everybody has a place, a really special place within the birth. Because it isn't just about mom, if her partner is there, and albeit it's a male or female, or maybe it's mom or grandma or aunt or whoever else is in their birth space, it's crucial that they feel wonderful and welcome and they have a role to play, and that everybody feels great throughout the birth and into the postpartum as well. So that's really key. So we offer all of that, and obviously the entire birth, so we're there. I've had some quick births. An hour and 36 minutes was the quickest,
Wow.
and 46 hours was the longest. And let me tell you, nurses and doctors went. Midwives went. They exchanged. New midwives came. New doctors came, nurses. I never left. And a lot of doulas, we can call in. We can do certain things, but the continuity care is really important. So they know that we're there. We might need a little rest. We might sleep when they're sleeping or sleep when partner's sleeping as well. But we're there. We're not tagging out with other people unless there is a need for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really big one. The biggest things as well is, everybody wants to know, well, what does a doula do? And the list is much smaller of what we don't do versus what we do. Basically, and flat across the board, is we don't do anything medical. I have a medical background, absolutely, but that's a different hat, and I do not do anything medical whatsoever. So nothing, not from vitals to, cervical checks, we do nothing, no palpations, nothing medical, but we do everything else. And depending what kind of doula and the person that you hire, they come with different tools as well. So you could end up with, far more in assistance than you ever imagined, because the best part about doulas is that there are no two doulas that are the same. And I'm always telling my students, if they get a little worried and, the aspect of competition, there can't be. You literally cannot hold on to the aspect of competition, because if they say to me, well, there's already 10 doulas in my city, and I say, that's amazing. That means you have less marketing to do. Because let me tell you, I am the only doula in my city, and I spend an arm and a leg. And I spend the majority of my day getting out there and marketing my butt off. So if there's 10 others, that means you're doing 1/10 of the work as far as marketing and getting your PR and understanding. So that means that's 10 times the amount of people all saying, oh, well, this is what a doula is, right? And that's how we create a movement of knowledge about a certain topic. So great. I'd say, great, 10 other doulas, that's amazing. But guess what? There are no other doulas like you, right? Mm-hmm. So when you have your little consults and you meet with your potential clients, the best aspect about you, all doulas are trained the same for the most part. We've all been trained, regardless of who you train with. We all set ourselves at relatively the same standard, and there's lots of reasons for that. But the biggest thing is you can be trained the same as 10 other people, and only one of you will get hired. And that's because of the person you are and who you evoke when you come into somebody's space. And some people want younger people, and some people want older people, and some people want experienced, and some people, there's just something about you that captures those clients. And I always say, I will be at every birth that I'm called to. Those are the ones. So there is never any hard feelings of not getting hired or anything. I am to be where I am meant to be, right? Mm-hmm. So that's really important that everybody understands that and knows that the doula in that space is needed in that space. And so we cover prenatal, we cover birth, which is really great, and then immediate postpartum, which is generally 1 to 2 hours after birth, and making sure that mom and babe and partner are doing really well, and that breastfeeding is established, and maybe there's a little bit of tweaking to do, but for the most part, all is well. We can do up some tidying and helping out in that sense. And then we come back later within a week's time, and we offer, an immediate postpartum or 2 visits, perhaps whatever happens to be in that package, like I said. So coming and doing that, the mothering of the mother. So coming and doing, like cooking, like cleaning, aspects of helping mom with babe, or helping babe while mom actually has a shower or has a bath or takes a nap, because that's really great too. Or maybe mom is with the other siblings, or maybe you're with the siblings while mom's with babe. So really, a postpartum doula is mothering the mother. So it's the aspect of we no longer live in our villages with mom and aunts and uncles and grandparents and everybody, 2 huts down. So that's really unfortunate. So we're trying to create that space and make it smaller by providing that aid that women so desperately need in the postpartum stages. So a postpartum doula does nothing prenatal, nothing birth, only does postpartum. So that's really, really key. And they can do it, and so after birth and up until generally about a year postpartum. And typically, they go and they arrange set times and dates, so you might hire your doula to come, say, Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 2 hours, or it's really great because, family and friends and loved ones can, possibly, purchase the services of a postpartum doula. It makes a really great gift and really helps mom out. Not all men are blessed with, or partners are blessed with, the aspect of paternity care, right? So our mat leave, pat leave, so the inability to be able to stay home and do all that. So postpartum doula gets to pick up that role and really just help out this new situation and provide lots of resources and education and knowledge, and for the bigger part, really just offer what they do best, which is helping mother the mother.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like a really big part of it is the emotional support and the practical support. And as a doula, you mentioned that you're there to help the whole family, to help everybody, but you're there for the mother. And I think that you made a really interesting point, because your OB, your GP, your midwife, even midwifery care tends to be much more personal, and you definitely get a longer appointment and you get more attention, you get a lot more information when you have a midwife, generally speaking, versus an OB, because they just have so many clients and just not enough time. However, they're still not there to hold your hand and do all the practical care aspects. They're there to make sure the baby's okay. Would you say that that's kind of a correct assumption?
Absolutely. So healthcare practitioners are there for baby and mother, but, the health of babe and the birth itself. And it's very medical, very, very, very medical. And it has to be, right? Mm-hmm. It has to be to a point. And then we're there for mom, just like you said. We're there for mom and for partner, and that's the beauty of it on our aspect. I've massaged clients for 10 hours. I've walked hallways till I thought I was raw in my shoes, right? Because that's what mom needed at the time, right? Mm-hmm. Or partner needed a break, and we tag team in and out, and, but nobody else is doing that. Do you think a nurse is walking the halls doing hip squeezes and doing raking of the back and, doing, cranial massages and getting her everything she needs? Nobody's doing that, right? So doula is doing all of those glorious things that nobody thinks to do. It's not in anybody else's job description to do, right? And they just generally don't. So that's our role.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that maybe people know midwives are more on the holistic side. So I think maybe sometimes it can be easy to confuse the role of the midwife. As you mentioned, sometimes if you tell someone, oh, I'm a birth doula, oh, you're midwife, I know what that is. So people may not be clear on the role of a midwife, because a midwife is a medical professional, at the same level, obviously, in order to deliver. So I think a lot of people maybe. So I really like how you described the difference so that our listeners know exactly what a doula does do. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you also is, lately, within the last several, years, decades, midwifery care and women seeking natural options and trying to birth naturally, women birthing at home, women birthing in water, and all those different types of things, hospitals offering these birthing centers and those types of things. What do you think is the reason why women are beginning to seek out more natural alternatives? And I know you had mentioned your own experience where you did have more of a medicalized birth, and then you had the complete opposite experience. So maybe you could talk a little bit about just why women are seeking more natural alternatives to birth.
That's a great question, and I can only answer it by saying lack of gnosis breeds fear. And when we don't have knowledge about something, we fear it right away. So I find it funny that it seems like it's faddish, and everybody's like, oh, so-and-so was birthed at home. Oh my gosh, I can't believe. I think people forget that that's actually what used to happen. That's what your mothers used to do. And, it's not a poor thing. We hear you're not poor if you birth at home. It's not stereotypical of any type of culture that births at home or things like that. It's actually what we all did, right? Mm-hmm. And to be matter of fact, really, it's where low-risk pregnancies should be done, because then we free up hospital costs, we free up doctors, we free up medical interventions, we free up all of that. And that is just my personal opinion, but that's because I wholeheartedly believe that women can do it. Women can do it. And, there's a lot of situations where we need medical practice, for sure, but it shouldn't be so dire routine that now we are actually hindering the way women are giving birth. We are hindering their ability to trust their bodies to birth their babies. And we are. And, you can follow tons of great doctors who are standing up finally and saying, you know what, we're hindering. We are hindering. We're doing too much. Interventions are becoming too first and too mainstream that women are forgetting that they can do this and following the women before them and before their time. Women have been birthing with women since the dawn of time. Mm-hmm. It's what we do. It's what we do best. It's actually what we were designed to do, right? And when the pendulum swung so far left that, we invited all these and now we rely on all these, and we've taken a sense of entitlement and ability away from women. Now that is my honest opinion, and I only speak in honesty. So that is the way it is. But I fully believe that all of this is happening, like you said, and you are starting to see it, because you know what? My oldest will be 10 next week, and 10 years ago, I didn't even really know what a midwife was, and I was in the medical field. And I did not really, truly know what a midwife was, let alone that I was entitled to one, let alone that I would have one for my birth. That was not knowledge. I birthed where everyone else birthed, the same way as everyone else birthed, in the hospital. I didn't read any other outside books other than What to Expect When You're Expecting, the ones they give you. Oh my goodness, I wouldn't hold my coffee table up with those books now, right? Knowing that the kind of knowledge and the truly the knowledge that's out there now, I just laugh at the way things were before, and even well before my time as well, into my parents and their parents birthing. Like things keep coming, and the pendulum keeps swinging on both aspects. But so I think that the movement is coming even more so because there's more knowledge about it. The more the more I teach and the more doulas and doula students that get out there and start spreading the word, the more people are understanding that there are choices. There are choices, and women are not necessarily in the know that they have choices.
Mm-hmm.
When I say that, people say, "Really? I don't have to do that?" And you say, "No, you don't have to birth on your back. You should not lay down and birth on your back. Does that even make sense to you?" And you say, "No." And then you say, "But why am I doing it?" Just simple things like that. And when you don't question things and you don't look into things and you don't become passionate about things and about taking back your right to birth the way you want in certain aspects, then we give up that. So I'm so thrilled that more and more women are saying, and there are all forms of natural. One woman's definition of all natural birth could be very different than somebody else's, right? And as long as you have your best birth, that's what's important. And your best birth is that way because you were given knowledge. So, like I said, 90% of a doula's role is knowledge. So it means that I don't advocate for you. I don't tell the doctor what you need or what you should have because we discussed it. I give my clients all of the possible birth choices and the things that surround birth and the knowledge that surrounds birth and the ideas. I give them so much information that they then take that information and develop answers and choices for themselves that they then go forward with their birth. And then I help them go forward with that. But it comes from knowledge. I wish I would have known 1/16 of the knowledge I have now about the births I did 8 and 10 years ago, because I didn't know. And they told me, to have an induction, and there was no reason. When I look at it now, there was no reason. I wasn't even at 40 weeks. So stuff like that, it makes you angry. And then you just have to let go of that and say, okay, let's move forward. Let's move forward with lots of knowledge and make everyone else well aware of, again, how birth could and should be.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's definitely that idea that a birth is a medical emergency and that it's inherently dangerous, and that even though the majority of, say, low-risk births, or the majority of births are low-risk, and I think it's very interesting because even when speaking with women about birthing options and those types of things, I'll often hear the idea of, well, I could never have my baby at home. I could never handle the pain. I could never do it. And where do those ideas come from? I think that's a more interesting question as to where the idea that as a woman you couldn't possibly handle labor and birthing a baby, even though, as you mentioned, that's what our bodies are designed to do. Where does that idea come from that we are not capable of actually doing it? Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting. And one of the questions, since we're talking a lot about birthing and everything, and the services that doulas offer both before labor, during, and then postpartum, one of the services that doulas often offer, depending on their training and everything, is placenta encapsulation. And so for the listeners who maybe have never heard of that before, or some that have maybe heard of it but don't really know a lot about it, maybe you could spend a couple minutes talking about what placenta encapsulation is and why a person might actually want to encapsulate what that even means, first of all, because I'm sure someone's listening going, what does that even mean? And why someone would want to do it.
Right. Okay. So listeners, I'm about to blow your mind. Okay. So placenta encapsulation is the art of eating your placenta. I know. It sounds absolutely ludicrous. Why would you ever do that? Simply because it's going to give you postpartum healing, like you wouldn't believe. Okay, and I'm not talking. Although quite often I'm hired immediately postpartum, so I can make a postpartum smoothie. So you literally take a small chunk, a couple pieces the size of an almond. You would never even know. Throw it in a blender, with some berries and some almond milk and some ice. Immediate immediate, even hemorrhage control, right? So, maybe that's not for everybody, right? That's absolutely fine. And, I have a lot of clients that just say, I want this, I don't want to see it, you take it away, you bring it back in a pretty jar, I'm none the wiser, and I know what I'm doing, and that's fine. And that's fine, too. Basically, placenta encapsulation, placenta fascia, so it is the art of eating the placenta. Now, I don't expect you to just put it on a plate at the dinner table and consume your placenta. Absolutely not, right? It is a bloodborne organ. So for that, you already know that it's totally in an abundance rich in iron, right? Vitamins B6 and E and oxytocin. You got to think, the stem cells, and it is in abundance. So I always explain to people, so you spent nearly 10 months growing this baby and this placenta, this big, beautiful afterbirth. You spent all of this time, it provided the nourishment. It provided nourishment for you and baby. It is what has kept you afloat, okay? And in one given moment, you lose both of them. And you're basically left with this cavity of depletion, so utter depletion of vitamins and nutrients found within the placenta itself. It's just gone. Now, you can supplement with some over-the-counter stuff, but why would you? Why would you put anything else in your body other than what was already there? And you do that through the art of placenta encapsulation. So it is an art form, absolutely. So I'm a placenta specialist, and I love it. And I would say 95% of my clients get placenta encapsulation as well. So it's basically the art of taking an entire sterile field, and you take the placenta, and it is dehydrated, and then it is ground up, and then it's put in capsules. And, when I say that, people go all funny, and they go, and you eat their placenta? And I have to shake their heads, and I say, no, Mom eats the placenta. So that's what happens. And Mom just takes, she takes the right amount of dose, whether it's 1, 2 pills a day, depending on how she is, and she consumes that till finish. So people would say, well, oh my gosh, how many pills can a placenta make? Well, you give me a nice, big, juicy placenta, and you're going to get lots of capsules out of it, right? But the biggest thing is the return of the nutrients and the vitamins that Mom is missing, right? So, FDA doesn't spend any money really researching placenta encapsulation, so we obviously speak on behalf of, it being that I'm a licensed professional, but I'm not able to diagnose or prescribe. So I don't tell you without a doubt it's going to cure postpartum blues or baby blues, but will 90% of new mothers tell you that it helps with baby blues? Absolutely. Will the majority of mothers tell you that it helped with breast milk and helped with blood loss? Absolutely. Will they tell you that it helped with mood and process of, imbalances for hormones in the mind? Absolutely. Because the pills speak for themselves. And I had 2 births and obviously never heard of placenta encapsulation. And with my youngest, I did. I had finished the training, and that was the first placenta I encapsulated, and night and day. And I breastfed for 3 months, 3 months and 5 months with my first 2, and 21 months with my third, right? And so I have a professional opinion on it, and I have a personal opinion on it. I can't express enough how much placenta encapsulation just helps provide an all-around blissful period for new moms. And, not everyone is into it, and that's absolutely fine. But you'll never know until you try it, right? Cats eat their placenta, right? A lot of Eastern traditions still do all that. So again, it's just Western culture saying, oh my gosh, the latest fad. If some people do it in Hollywood, all of a sudden it becomes a big deal, and I'm trying to, it's part of my business, and I'm screaming up and down on rooftops saying, eat your placenta, hire me, it's so great for you. And, it's not for everybody, but all you have to do is get wind of it and research it more for yourself as well, and say, oh, I guess it makes a lot of sense. And really, how do you scoff at things that make sense?
Well, and when you're when you're breastfeeding, when you've just had a baby, obviously, you just, like you said, you just lost a lot of, I've said it on the podcast before, but I know when I had my son, I was looking at him thinking, where did he come from? And, and, you know, a lot of women really have to monitor their levels of iron and, you know, their energy levels and everything, because when you're pregnant and when you're breastfeeding, obviously your nutrients go to the baby, right? The baby's the priority. And so your placenta is a wealth of bioavailable vitamins and nutrients that came from your body. So they would be a lot more easily absorbed than, say, the synthetic
it's yours.
counterpart.
Why wouldn't you? It's yours. It's not mine. It's not the lady's down. It's yours. You grew it. You should bask in its glory, really.
So I know a friend of mine actually, that was maybe the first time I had heard about it many years ago, and a friend of mine had encapsulated her placenta. And, you know, every pregnancy, notoriously, her iron kind of goes in the toilet at some point, even though she's taken iron pills and she's had to have the iron shots. And so she encapsulates her placenta, and she tells me that her iron level is like 96 or something like that. Yeah. And I remember thinking, what? The last time I talked to you, your iron was at like 5 because, right? So obviously, I'm not a medical professional. Obviously, this is not like a medically researched, you know, paper that I'm reading off of. This is situational experience. But again, the reason I do this podcast is just to expose the listeners to different ideas and different practices. And so if you've never heard of it before and you're intrigued by it, certainly look into it as a potential option with no guarantees, because but it's definitely something to think about. So to switch gears a little bit, because we've spent most of our time talking about your work as a doula, I, of course, wanted to ask you about your work as a fertility awareness educator. So I'd love to kind of switch gears back. And maybe you could start just by telling us a little bit about your experience training as a fertility awareness educator. I know a lot of the listeners especially who've been kind of listening from the beginning, are kind of getting intrigued about the fertility awareness educator process and what it's like. And maybe some are even considering becoming fertility awareness educators and wondering more about it. So maybe you could talk about what your experience was like as a student learning the method.
Oh, absolutely. So I would basically say to your listeners, if you're looking for a more direct approach to women's health, I really, truly invite you to look at becoming a fertility awareness educator. I took the Justice method, as we talked about, and obviously as a completely biased approach, I will absolutely recommend 110%. So Geraldine Matus is the founder, and her and the co-teachers, they make the training exactly how it should be. So learning every intricate part of a woman's reproduction, learning the anatomy and physiology, learning about the fifth vital sign of health is so crucial and what we need more of in this world. We need women teaching women the way it used to be and the way it still is in other parts of the world. We need women educating each other about sexuality and health and reproduction and menstruation and healthy parameters and not and sexuality, and we need to bring that back. So I can't stress enough that we need more educators out there, and it's really important that we're understanding the signs that our body's already telling us, inviting other women to listen to their unique patterns and creating that movement of being aware of one's fertility, right? So that's fertility awareness, imagine, and really just understanding that we're all really unique and that we all need help. We all need reproductive help. We're kind of walking around like zombies inside of our own bodies, and we're not sure, and somebody's ideas of normal healthy parameters are completely different than somebody else's, and both might be completely unhealthy, and we're not sure because we're exposed to so much, and that's from, contraceptive endocrine disruptors and hormonal birth controls and toxins around the everything and GMOs, you name it. We're exposed to too much, and we need to get healthy again. And the best way to get healthy is to educate about healthiness and to get into the realm of women's reproductive health. And that's what I did. And again, I didn't know about fertility awareness. I didn't know about FAM whatsoever. But there was something inside of me that said, man, I am so sick of being on birth control. I am a lunatic. I feel like I'm a lunatic when I'm on birth control. I feel like every doctor I've ever had has shoved a new thing inside of me or down my throat, and it's making me less of who I was when I was born. You know what I mean? When I wasn't full of toxins. So that was a really big thing to me. And again, with the Spark, when I feel that something is good for me and good for the masses, I don't just need to do it. I need to teach it. I need to get a hold of it and let the world know that, hey, there is something better out there. And better just comes with some knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. So I chose, like I said, the Justice method to teach with them, and it has been amazing. It has been absolutely amazing. And I'm a woman. I am 33 years old. I spent 11 years in the military, and I thought, what in the heck am I going to do now? And I did this training. I have 4 children. I have 4 children and 3 dogs, right? So if I can do it, anyone can do it. And, it's a 2-year program. The biggest things I can say is you really need to be dedicated. You need to be dedicated to the cause. And I know I belong to some FAM groups on Facebook, and there are some truly passionate people. And actually, an interest got sparked just recently, and someone had said, I'd like to be an educator. And then just like the whole thread filled up with women saying, I want to be an educator. And I was just like, you all need to be educators, right? Because the other turn to that is everybody wants to teach from their personal experiences and a couple of books they read and, kind of hearsay. But we really need solid people with solid knowledge about fertility awareness to be educating about fertility awareness. We can't have people just trying to teach everybody because their aunt's develop something and this is what they think they should do. And we need educators, people that have put dedication and devotion and pride into a learning and training system like the Justice program offers, and really honing in on the entire aspect, because fertility awareness isn't just about charting, right? It's not. It's about so much more. It's about the healthy aspect and healthy parameters and the psychosocial issues and who the person is, how they became who they are, how they became so unhealthy, what they're doing now, and how are we going to make them even more healthy after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so much more to it. And, I'm also part of a lot of those forums and everything. And you're absolutely right when you say that it's really exciting when we learn about fertility awareness, especially for the first time. You read a book or two, you read a couple blog articles, and you start charting yourself, and you have your own experience. So when you chart your own cycle, you see things from your own eyes. You didn't have the experience of 100 different women who could have had 100 different experiences. And so you really don't know what you don't know. And so then if you take that limited knowledge and then try to educate others based on your own experience, there's a lot that you're missing out. And that's where the fertility awareness educator programs come into play, because you're not just learning one perspective, you're kind of learning what it's a holistic health field, right? So you're learning about, just like a doctor doesn't just learn about whatever they experienced. It's the same kind of thing. In order to be able to help women, you have to have a solid base of knowledge about all of these things, not just your own experience.
Oh, absolutely. And, and our vast knowledge into reproductive disorders and the whole realm of it's huge. It's 2 years worth. It's really quite extensive, right? Like we discussed before. And every woman is different. So women are coming to fertility awareness from all different angles. So we've got women coming off the pill, and we've got women coming from postpartum avenues and postpartum with breastfeeding or without breastfeeding. we've got menopausal and perimenopausal. We've got women with all around general unhealthy parameters within their cycles. And because we're all unique, women are coming towards and they're flocking towards fertility awareness from all, like I said, all different angles. And no one can be treated the same. What works for someone and what looks normal to somebody is completely different than someone else. So it's not just, oh, why are my cycles so weird? Or you know what, they might not even be asking that because they don't even know that their cycles are weird, right? Like just soup sandwich kind of cycles. Like you just kind of look at that and go, how long have you been living like this, right? And let me help you get healthy. This is not healthy. And women aren't even aware. They're not even aware because they've just been given so much, and sometimes less is more. So fertility awareness is a great example of less is more.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's one of the reasons why I stress the health implications so much on the podcast, because even when I first learned fertility awareness charting, and I was around educators and women who were charting as well. So it wasn't even like I was alone with a book in my house. And for me, it was at a time when I was in university. I was in my early 20s and I was learning all this really cool feminist information and kind of, challenging that idea like, 28-day cycles are not the norm because every woman does have variation, right? But you can take that too far. So you could take it so that your cycles are really actually unhealthy, but you're used to them because you're charting them. And you could just think that that's you. This is me and this is how my cycles are. This is actually a unique indicator of my own individuality as a woman. And you could actually have unhealthy cycles. And so it can be helpful to have an educator with that knowledge base, especially about the health of cycles, what healthy cycles are supposed to look like, to help you to interpret and actually understand what's going on, even if you're not trying to get pregnant, but understanding that, you're not really the healthiest right now. Let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm. And we need to reach out. We need to reach out to women right now. We need to reach out to young women. Like the younger and younger they are, they're getting put on birth control because their cycles are out of whack. Their cycles are out of whack because they have immature cycles, right? Putting them on a horrible birth control is not making them have healthy cycles. It's actually hindering them and it's setting them up for failure in the reproductive world, right? We need to educate our youth. So we need women learning about FAM to teach our daughters to break the vicious cycle of repetitive hormonal birth controls and horrible things that are happening so that we can all start living longer and living healthier menopausal times because we were wise and took care of ourselves now, right? And we need our daughters to teach their daughters. And we need to create that movement once again where knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm. Well, I couldn't agree with you more. And I have a couple of questions as we kind of get towards the end of the interview. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, it's kind of like a two-parter, I guess you'd say, but how has learning the fertility awareness method, because you jumped right in before you even knew what you were getting into fully. So how has learning it and using it impacted your own life? And maybe you could talk a little bit, do the little elevator spiel of how you would describe fertility awareness in that situation where you just have a couple minutes and somebody has no idea.
Right. So when people ask me what I do, I tell them that I'm a holistic reproductive health practitioner. I tell them that I aim to help women, really, better their reproductive lives by teaching them the art of natural birth control, teach the art of fertility awareness, so being aware of your fertility and what that means, figuring out healthy menstrual cycles, and all around overall health in the reproductive field. So I include that. I love what I do, and it fits into my birth work, right? So my ultimate idea way back when, which is coming to fruition now, is that I thought, okay, I'd be a birth doula. That would be really great. And I was taking the Justice method. I was taking the Justice teaching through that way, and I thought, okay, this will be great, because then I would be a birth doula, and I'd be invited into this, intimate space of birth, and then women would come to me in their postpartum, right, because they're postpartum, they're breastfeeding, and they don't want to take birth control. So you wouldn't believe how many of my clients come to me for fertility awareness immediately following. So I was like, this is amazing. So my business keeps going, my services keep going, because people are coming to me for repeat things, which is huge, right? Mm-hmm. Or I'm getting a lot of fertility clients now. So, they're coming off the pill, their cycles are all out of whack, I'm helping them get healthy, bada boom, they become pregnant. Oh my gosh, I was already in great rapport with them, and we were in such a great space. Imagine now they want me to be their doula, and, and I have many, many modalities, and then they just, everything just adds to each other. But I had aimed to be kind of a one-stop shop for women, and that's coming into place now, which is really great.
Mm-hmm. That's so inspiring, and it's really interesting how when you do have a vision and you're kind of specific about it, how it does come to fruition somehow. You might look back and think, mm-hmm. How did this all happen? But it all came together. Well, I just have a couple final questions to end the show today. What would you say is the biggest myth about fertility in general that you would like to see corrected?
I love the instant reaction. You know what? I have some clients that say to me, and I'll have a consult, and they'll say, well, a friend of mine was saying, and I'll be like, no, wait, let me guess. Fertility awareness doesn't work. I had 3 children when I was using fertility awareness, and it doesn't work. Let me tell you, I'm just going to throw out this wild thought, but that is a user failure, not a method failure. Okay? Fertility awareness, when used in perfect use, is 99.6% effective. That's as much as the toxicity levels in birth control, in hormonal birth control, 99.6% effective. Now, which would you rather incorporate as a tool into your life, right? Birth control, wherein you are not the one in control, the pill is, or fertility awareness, being aware of one's fertility. So I think the biggest myth we need to squash is that it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Because it does work. It works when you have been educated properly. It works when you have great follow-up sessions with an educator like myself, and that you put some money and you put some devotion and some dedication into the value of learning a method correctly. Like you said, you cannot read a couple blogs and half a book and say, yeah, use FAM. Yeah, I'm pregnant again. You know what I mean? You have to put dedication in there and to say, okay, I had an educator. I really want to use this as a tool. I fully understand. I don't kind of understand, especially when you're avoiding pregnancy. You don't wing it. You don't kind of get it. You either get it or you don't get it. But the biggest myth I want to completely squish out there is that fertility awareness method doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's like me saying that I went to the doctor and I got a prescription for the pill. Mm-hmm. And I never take it. I don't take it on time. I take it every other day. Sometimes I go a whole week without taking it, and I don't even remember where I'm at in my pill pack. Yeah. And then I'm going to say that the pill doesn't work. Or if I go and buy condoms, and then where are they? I don't know, because I'm having sex and I don't know where they are. So it's kind of the same thing, right?
Right.
So,
there's always an excuse, right? Not to take hold of your own reproduction, your own fertility yourself.
But if you're using quote unquote using fertility awareness, but you don't check for mucus every day, and you don't take your temperature, and you're making judgment calls with no information, but it's the same thing as having the pill pack and not taking the pill. So there's a really good distinction to be made between user failure and method failure. And so I'm glad that you made that. And so we talked a lot about birth today. What would you say is one of the biggest myths about birth in general, or pregnancy, or however you want to take the question, that you'd like to see corrected?
I've been doing doula work for 2.5 years. And in 2.5 years, I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of really great, beautiful, wonderful births, and I've seen a lot of things that I knew was wrong. And I knew it was wrong from a medical standpoint, and I knew it was wrong from a doula standpoint. And unfortunately, there's times where you can't say anything. But it weighed really heavily on me. It weighed so heavily on me that I vowed to create a change, right? I'm always teaching my kids, if you want to make waves, you got to get in the water. I teach them that daily, and it's really important. So I took a huge leap of faith this year, and I created a project. And I created a project that coincides with the question you just asked me, because I think the biggest thing I want to get out there is the misunderstanding that women think they can't do it. They can't, right? And I think it's the biggest and it's the most debilitating aspect of the birth world, is that so many women are thinking, I can't do this. Yeah, right. I fell down and scraped my knee, and I was like a baby for a day, right? It has nothing to do with the pain tolerance like that. It has to do with the misunderstanding that their bodies can't do it. So I made this project, and the project's called the Bringing Birth Home Project. And I vowed for an entire year, right, to honor all births. That was not my intention, to honor all births, but that I would only accept home births for an entire year.
Wow.
Okay? Now, I'm only accepting home births for an entire year because, like I said, it's a project. And what I did was to invite women and couples into the space, and to educate more on it, was that I created a foundation that I waived all of their doula fees, right? So I'm hoping to make millions, because I'm not making any money right now. And what I did was I am in the act of collecting every piece of information possible about these births. So the couples have to fill out very lengthy forms, and there's lots of pictures and information and reflective thoughts and feelings and things that is all gathered a whole bunch in the prenatal stages, and that their birth is utilized, and their birth story is utilized, and the photography is utilized, and their postpartum thoughts and reflective issues and things, that is all utilized. And I will collect all of this amazing data. And again, with gnosis, lack of gnosis breeds fear, is that I hope to put and break that cycle. And that and then I'll write a book about bringing birth home, right? So putting the beauty back in, and putting the knowledge and the understanding that birth is safe, that birth can be very safe, and that they can do it, and that their bodies can do it, and that I believe in them, and that I believe in their bodies, and I believe in birth, and I believe in their babies to know what to do, and I believe in their midwifery care, that they know what they're doing, because it's a 4-year degree. That's all they do is babies. They're very, very good at what they do, and I'm trying to put it out there that I believe. That I believe that they can do it, because I think that's the biggest aspect, is that we're utilizing so many interventions, and so many things are happening because we are not releasing, we're not letting go, we're not believing, and we not feel like we're able to cope, and things like that. So when you add a really, really wild doula into your mix, who comes with a ton of tools, I'm the biggest advocate of dads and partners, the biggest one. When you add all that into the mix, and you mix a great team, and again with low-risk births, right, because only low-risk births are done at home. When you add all that into the mix, you just set yourself up for success. And that's what I've done. And it's done to combat, what you just asked me was, what's the biggest myth, what's the biggest thing about births that I would like to see change to, is women believing in themselves once again.
That's so inspirational. I am in love with the project that you're doing.
Thank you.
I think it's so necessary, and I think that once, even now, it's having an impact. But once you have birthed your project and you share it with the world, it's going to have a profound impact, for women, because I would agree, and I think it's really sad and highly problematic that women believe that their bodies are not capable of birthing. And so when we'll definitely keep in touch, and at some point in your journey we'll have you back and we'll talk all about what you found in your research and your project, and I can't wait for that. So, last question of the day. What advice would you give to a woman who's listening and she's currently on hormonal birth control? She doesn't want to have a baby right away, but she knows that she might want to get pregnant within the next 2 to 3 years.
Get off birth control. I can't stress it enough. I cannot stress enough. For whatever reason she feels she needed to go on birth control in the beginning, to thank that reason, to release that reason, and then to get off the birth control, and to begin healing. Everybody seems to think that they have this biological thing inside of them that says, okay, great, I've got a really great time mapped out here. I'm on birth control right now. I want to get pregnant by September. I'll go off birth control at such and such a month. And then that month passes and they're just like, how come I'm still not pregnant? I'm doing everything right. And there's this huge misunderstanding that we just become healthy. We're just like have a cycle or two, and all of a sudden, 2 to 10 years worth of hormonal birth control, if they're supposed to flush out of our system. It doesn't just come out with our urine. It doesn't come out, when we have a bowel movement. It doesn't come out when we just, let go. It takes time, and it takes consecutive amounts of healthy cycles, which you're not going to have for anywhere between 6 to 12 months. Right? Or more. Sometimes if there's underlying reproductive issues, that could be hindering as well. So that's huge. Women need to understand that the sooner they can get off birth control, the sooner they can learn fertility awareness, the sooner that they can dedicate themselves to learning through an accredited organization or accredited educator, and they put value into learning, that the healthier they're going to be. Regardless of anything else, I want them to be healthy. I want listeners to understand, I and all fertility awareness educators out there, we want you to be healthy. Therefore, to be healthy, you cannot be on hormonal birth control.
Oh, I love that. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for being here today. So for all the listeners that you've truly inspired, all the minds that you have blown today, where can our listeners find you and learn more about what you do or work with you if they happen to live in the Owen Sound, Ontario area?
Oh, well, the best part about my work is that I actually teach women all over Canada, and I've actually got clients in the States as well. Because I teach fertility awareness on media platforms, so Skype and Google Hangouts and things like that, I can reach anyone, anywhere.
Amazing.
So that's really great, and I really want to make that clear that you do not have to live in my area, in that you can absolutely reach out to me by any means, because I teach everybody on a media platform. Unless they live here, then we definitely get together, and that education is full-blown on media platforms, which works really great. So you can find me at www.sacredrush.com, because all women possess such a rush of everything good inside of them. So everything from hormones to blood to energy to everything. So that's kind of where that all stems from. So my business is called Sacred Rush Embodied Living. So that's really crucial in understanding that, the embodiment of who we are, who we were, who we're going to be, and how we're going to do that in the healthiest way. That's kind of where that all stems from as well. You can find me on Facebook at Sacred Rush, and all those other fun ones too, Pinterest and Sacred Rush and Twitter, Sacred Rush. I'm all over the place. So I love knowledge. I spout out knowledge more than anything, and I love to talk birth. So thank you so much for having me. And I love to talk fertility, and I love to talk women and all that stuff. So if you follow along, I've got a really great reproductive group, which I'm always posting about fertility awareness as well. So you can ask to join that right off my Facebook as well, and just reach out to me and keep listening to Fertility Fridays, because I was hooked. You reached out to me, Lisa, and you're like, well, I'm Lisa from Fertility. I'm like, you're Lisa from Fertility Friday. Whoa! I was so excited. Like, I might have heard of you. You're kind of a big deal in my world too. So thank you so much for having me and creating such a huge foundation for women to just flock to and gather information, because the more we learn, the more we can pass on, and the more we can just be totally empowered together.
Well, thank you so much. That's so nice to hear. I love doing it. It's almost like I can't even explain it. I'm so inspired every time I do interviews. It energizes me, and I love learning from other women. And every time I interview a woman, I'm just honored to be able to learn from their experiences. And it's something that's truly special. So I really appreciate you saying that. And I'm sure the listeners can tell how much I love doing this, but but yes, thank you so much, Sarah, for being here today. I had a great time chatting with you.
Same here.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please share it with a friend. You can always find me on Facebook at facebook.com/fertilityfridays with an S. You can find me on Twitter at Fertile Friday, or you can stop by the blog and leave a comment in the show notes for today's episode, which you'll find at fertilityfriday.com/43, so the number 43. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode that Sarah and I just did. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what we talked about birth, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about the Fertility Awareness Educator Program. So if anything we said resonated with you, just stop by the blog and let me know in the comments. And if you've been enjoying the podcast, please look for it on iTunes and leave a 5-star review so that more people can find it. I do read all the reviews, and I appreciate all of your comments and feedback. So leave an honest review and let me know how I'm doing. And as I've mentioned before, if you are wanting to learn more about the Fertility Awareness Method, I've started the Fertility Friday Fertility Awareness Method Facebook group. So if you want to join the group, you can just go to fertilityfriday.com/community, and you'll be redirected to the group, so you'll find us there. And as always, until next time, be well and happy charting.